Every day, people fall victim to financial scams. These crimes don't just empty bank accounts, they break hearts, destroy lives, and in the most tragic cases, lead to death. Behind every scam is a human story of loss, betrayal, and despair. In this documentary, we explore the stories of those who lost everything, not just their money, but their lives. Christine Lee Hansen, UK, £65,000 lost. Christine Lee Hansen was a loving mother from the UK. She had saved for years, putting away £65,000 to secure her family's future. When an online investment opportunity came along, she saw it as a way to grow her savings. But what Christine didn't know was that the opportunity was a scam. After weeks of receiving fake updates and empty promises, her entire savings were gone. Interview with Christine's family member. Tearful, she was devastated. She blamed herself for not seeing the signs, for trusting them. She stopped talking to people, she became a shell of herself. We had no idea how bad it had gotten. Christine's shame and guilt over losing her family's money consumed her. One morning, her family found her lifeless in her home. She had taken her own life, unable to bear the emotional and financial devastation. Danny Coddle, USA, $700,000 lost. Danny Coddle, a retired police officer from North Carolina, was a man who spent his life protecting others. But in 2018, he himself became a victim. Danny developed an online relationship with a woman he believed to be his soulmate. Over the course of months, he sent her more than $700,000, believing she needed the money for medical bills and travel expenses. Interview with Danny's friend. He was so sure she was real. He was excited, telling me about how he'd finally found love. But it was all a lie. When he found out he'd been scammed, he was heartbroken. He felt so foolish, so ashamed. After realizing that the woman he had fallen in love with didn't exist, Danny was overcome with grief and embarrassment. Despite his strong exterior, the emotional pain was too much to bear. A few weeks later, Danny took his own life. The Chinese student, Canada, $50,000 lost. In 2018, a Chinese international student living in Canada received a phone call that would change their life forever. The caller claimed to be from Canadian immigration, saying that the student was under investigation and needed to pay a $50,000 bond or face immediate deportation. Interview with a friend of the victim. They were terrified. They didn't know the laws well and thought the call was real. They emptied their account to pay the so-called bond. After transferring the money, the student realized they had been scammed. The fear of deportation, combined with the financial loss, pushed them into a deep depression. Struggling with isolation and shame, the student tragically took their own life a few days later. Hideo Kubo, Japan, 10 million yen lost. Hideo Kubo, a businessman in Japan, was lured into a pyramid scheme promising quick returns on his investment. Over the course of a year, he invested 10 million yen, believing he was part of a legitimate business venture. But when the scheme collapsed, Hideo realized that he had lost everything. Interview with Hideo's colleague. He was so proud of his work, but when he lost all that money, it destroyed him. He felt like he had let his family down. Unable to recover from the financial and emotional blow, Hideo Kubo took his own life in 2007. His family and friends were left heartbroken, questioning how such a thing could happen. The Kenyan woman, Kenya, $12,000 lost. In Kenya, a small business owner was promised a way to grow her savings through an investment scheme that guaranteed high returns. She invested everything she had, $12,000, in the hopes of expanding her business. But soon after, the scheme collapsed, and her money vanished. Interview with her neighbor. She was a hard worker. She had built that business from nothing. But when the money was gone, so was her spirit. She was so ashamed she couldn't face anyone. Crushed by the loss, the woman spiraled into depression. In 2020, unable to see a way out of her financial ruin, she ended her life. Italian woman, Italy, €300,000 lost. In 2021, an Italian woman believed she had found love online. The man, who claimed to be a wealthy businessman, convinced her to send him money over the course of several months, €300,000 in total. He promised they would be together soon, but he always had an excuse: interview with her sister, she was so in love. She thought they would get married. But when the money was gone and he disappeared, she felt completely lost. After realizing she had been scammed, the woman was devastated. The financial loss and emotional betrayal were too much for her to bear. She took her own life just weeks after discovering the truth. Elderly UK man, UK, £40,000 lost. An elderly man in the UK received a phone call from someone claiming to be from his bank. The caller said his account was compromised and that he needed to transfer his savings £40,000 to a safe account. The man, trusting the caller, did as he was told: interview with a family friend. He thought he was doing the right thing, protecting his money. When he found out it was a scam, he couldn't cope. He felt like he had lost everything. Overwhelmed by the loss of his life savings and feeling utterly betrayed, the man took his own life shortly after realizing the truth. These stories are heartbreaking reminders that scams are not just about financial loss. They rob people of their dignity, their hope, and sometimes their lives. It's time to raise awareness about the emotional toll of fraud and to support those affected. If you or someone you know has been impacted by a scam, please reach out for help. Financial loss is temporary, life is not.